I dislike dealing with menus. It's an area that I've felt the systems are always good enough, but still have pain points and usually require a lot of manually hooking up references and actions, and are difficult to quickly test. One system I do like was presented by Adam Kapos at Unite 2017. I'd recommend watching that video if you haven't already. But that system relies heavily on singletons, doesn't really go into transition animations, makes it difficult to set or update dependencies, and is not easily controllable in the editor. Hi, I'm BGK of Pear Tree Games, and this is creating a scriptable object menu system in Unity. So, to update the system, we're going to create a scriptable object version. An asset will be created to hold a menu prefab, a transition, functions to open and close the menu, and some subassets to hold ScriptableObject Variables, which can be used to house dependencies that the menu can subscribe to for changes. The menu itself will handle the focus and blur, which happen after an open transition and before a closed transition respectively. So we're not able to control a menu while the animations are playing. And finally, a transition will simply be an abstract class to form any type of transition we'd like to show and hide the menu. Okay, let's dive into the code. Based on feedback, I've increased the size and changed the color of my editor to hopefully help readability. We'll add a scene name field to instantiate the prefab to if the active scene isn't the desired one. The transition will be a serialized reference since we'll want to show it in the inspector. And we'll also add the same control booleans from the original menu system. One big difference is instead of a menu manager and a history stack, we'll be having each menu object keep track of the previous menu object and handle going back itself. We also want to keep track of any transition coroutine happening and whether the menu is already open. But being a scriptable object, we want to make sure it's not serialized so changes which happen in play mode aren't persisted. Most of the transitions should not be occurring on the root game object, so we'll add a reference to a container transform to perform any animations on. And we'll want to keep track of the latest selected handler to go back to on refocusing. Okay, so now we can create our menu object and menu mono behavior. But now we need a way to select a transition. There are a number of generic solutions online to add a quick selector, or if you use Odin Selector, it'll be selectable automatically. But since I'm putting this on GitHub, we'll create our own editor. To create the dropdown, we'll grab all of the assemblies in the app domain, loop over them, and get all types which are a subclass of the event menu transition. We'll then use the activator create instance method to create an instance of that transition class on selection. Okay, let's make some more transitions. We'll want to use some easing in our transitions, and you could write these with a tweening library like DOTween or LeanTween or any other, but I can't include them here and have my own version of an easing library based on easing.net, which includes an enum for inspector selection, so I'm just going to paste that in. For the transitions, we'll always want to check the current values in case we're in the middle of a transition and then switch directions. Using an inverse lerp, we can determine how long a partial transition should take. The updated transition property isn't showing here, but we'll come back to that later. Vectors don't have an inverse lerp method, so we'll use the dot product to calculate it. Okay, let's test it out. And we forgot to add our open and close buttons to do that. And here we have an issue with serialized reference fields and UI elements. Essentially, when a managed reference value changes, the property field still looks for fields on the old type before redraw. The easiest way I found to deal with this is to just remove the property field before updating the reference value, then recreating it and adding it back to the parent element. Okay, now we'll want to be able to add, rename, and remove variable subsets. We'll use the UI elements list view, which allows creating visual elements and binding individual items with functions passed into the constructor. The visual elements will have a text field to rename the subasset, an object field to select, and a remove button. We'll only rename the subasset on an Enter key press, and if we deselect the text field, we'll reset the text value to the name of the subasset. We'll also add a drop-down field to the list view foldout to create a new variable. It's similar to the previous drop-down population, but we'll include the path so we can have a nested tree view. To get the path, we'll use the menu name value of the createAssetMenu attribute of the ScriptableObject. This can be found by getting the attribute's named arguments and using the typed value. Okay, so when we add a variable, we can rename it to the text field by pressing Enter and removing them by pressing the X button. And that pretty much wraps up the system. How these variables get described to and set will be dependent on the menu itself, so I didn't make it generic to the system. I haven't added the disable previous menu logic, but we'll do that soon. But in the meantime, if you have any thoughts or comments, let me know, and thanks for watching.